Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Gaming the System, the podcast where three intersectional feminists examine gaming and games through a feminist lens. Today, I'm your host, Alex, and I'm joined by my friends Jem and Matt. Before we get started, if you want to support us, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem for some exclusive content. Or you can send us a one-off donation via PayPal to our email address, wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com. Jem, you mentioned earlier about the misogynistic elements to the behaviour. So do you think that the patriarchy in general has a role to play for what has unfolded here? Are there other things at play, or it's quite a difficult topic to discuss, but I certainly, on reading, got the impression that there might have been some fetishization going on, given that they were all romantic partners as well, and they always had either deafness or some other form of disability. They were of ethnic origin, say some of them I think were black, not all of them. We mentioned that Susan Banks was Muslim as well. But yeah, there's all these different elements. So I do wonder. But again, I don't want to delve into the realm of speculation here, but I definitely feel like there's some bad things in terms of patriarchy as an umbrella and the things that have come down from that. But I don't know how you feel.
Of course, the patriarchy is to blame for this. It's to blame for everything. I think that it was very interesting that my understanding was that all three women talked about in the article were deaf, and this was used as a explanation for why they were unable to communicate with people over Zoom or via the telephone. So it was one of the things that enabled them to be unavailable to be sort of verified as existing. Again, doesn't mean that they don't exist, but it seems very interesting that you would have a white, cis, able-bodied male, that's what it's usually a man, isn't it? Yeah. Male man, having relationships, series of relationships with with women who are quite seriously disabled. And I think you're right. I think all of them were women of colour. So there is a huge amount of potential for the whole fetishistic. I hate that word. Side of things here, absolutely. And there's a whole heap of controlling, narcissistic behaviour that runs through this. And as you say, we are in the realms of speculation, and as I said at the beginning, these are potentially real people, these are real lives, and even if the women aren't, Coty is, maybe. So I think it's just a really sad situation, actually, that you've got something that has done quite a lot of good. And Can I Play That, as I understand it, was founded by Susan Banks. So, but is now I can't see any reference to Coty on the website. So if he is still involved, it's not in any kind of public way. So I think it's interesting. I would be interested to see how they are going to move on from this, how they're going to pick themselves up from this, because there wasn't really a lot from them in the article. So it's early days. I did a bit of research into Coty and came up with a link to the article on a Reddit forum for deaf people. And every single person who commented said that they thought that these people were fake and was saying how horrendous an abuse it was of trust, of disability, of the gaming community. And I think Matt raised a really valid point. I think you also talked about it as well, Alex, that that all these people have put so much time and energy into these sites and the database, and for the database to just be taken offline because potentially this person got found out, or I don't think he's a very well person. I think that whatever way you cut this story, it feels uncomfortable. But yes, I absolutely do think that the patriarchy has a lot to answer for here. I think that women are too often seen as tools and as objects to be used for the gratification of men. And I don't just mean that sexually, I mean in general, that women are servants, women are slaves, women are domestic. They're supposed to do things to facilitate the men around them in this sort of misogynistic view. And when you start adding in disability and ethnicity, you get into even worse levels of that attitude.
I just want to touch, I was just thinking while you were talking about the deaf aspect as well. I think the kind of extra twisted thing about using those identities is that for non-disabled people, and certainly even myself, I don't know a lot about deaf culture. I've learned a lot more since working in the job that I work, and working with deaf trainers who deliver training that we offer about deaf awareness. But for example, there's a difference between an uppercase D deaf and a lowercase d deaf. And the uppercase D denotes someone who is a part of the deaf community. So that's someone who would have been deaf before they could speak. So they were born communicating, like they would have learned sign language and that would have been their first language. Essentially, that is the language they speak. So they have no problems within their own community communicating, and things like that. But I think when you approach a non-disabled person about disability and ask them what they know about it, they're probably not going to know an awful lot. So there's this layer of mystery around it. People feel like they might maybe be too afraid to ask, and maybe he was playing on that kind of lack of awareness in society at large. And also another thing I wanted to touch on, I don't know if you guys might have mentioned it. When we think about disability, one of the ways that disabled people are viewed in society is through what's called the charity model, in that disabled people are deserving of pity and care, and if we give them lots of money, then they'll be all right and they can get better, because they're helpless and they need our help. So it's viewing disabled people as helpless people that need support and care, and if we give them money and help and we make sure they're looked after because they can't do it themselves, then they'll be okay. And I think he was almost playing on that feeling in the back of people's heads as well when he was talking about these women either getting injured or having declines in their health or indeed dying, and using that to play on people's emotions. Essentially, it's pretty. There's, like I said, there's many layers to it, and I think the fact that they were so had so many intersectional identities again probably also played on people's want to be seen to support people of intersectional identities, to be seen to be propping people up who might not have the platform to do that. So again, he was playing on the fact that people with multiple intersectional identities don't often get the space that they need, but he was obviously doing it in a manipulative and deceptive way, which isn't a very good thing. But yeah,
I think so I'm looking at sort of silver lining things from this. You brought up the issue of there is a mystery around the disabled world, because it is a mysterious thing, because there are as many disabilities as there are disabled people. And from the outside, so I know nothing about cerebral palsy apart from the things that you talk about. And
yeah,
and then it comes down to a good thing about our community when you talk about talking about quote unquote woke people, is there's a lot of trust involved, because we don't. When you say someone like on the right wing, anti-woke people, you say, "Oh yeah, I've got cerebral palsy." You go, "Well, prove it then. Prove it then, you lazy, lying little piece of shit." That's their immediate reaction to everything when you say something like that isn't part of their like dogma, their incredibly restrictive dogma. So when someone says, "Oh, I'm bisexual," you go, "Cool." And you say, "I'm bisexual," and you go, "Well, fucking prove it then. You're married to someone of an opposite gender, so prove it." That's their response to everything. So in order to be fully inclusive, you need to trust people to be honest about themselves, and that if they aren't telling you absolutely exactly everything, because they don't owe you the full truth, that it's not going to be a devastating, catastrophic lie that they're doing. So one of the vulnerabilities of people like us who want to be inclusive of everything is that trust is a vital part of it. And there isn't really a way, because like I say, they're talking about the hoops that you have to jump through to prove you're disabled enough for a certain level of extenuating circumstances. There's the somewhere between that complete believe anyone is at face value of what they say and challenging them on every single thing that they claim to be. That's the grey area, which I think companies like Toucan, which is the one you work for, that's the space that you work in building that knowledge base of the companies that you work with, so that they go into things with as much information as possible, so that their mind is open enough to go, there are things that I don't understand about disability. And so when someone comes to me and says, I need this, I need that, your immediate thing is to go, okay, let's talk about it and we'll work it out, with the goal being that we want, it's not about measuring things. So this person gets this amount and this person gets this amount, and it's a zero-sum game, where it should be, we live in a society. We're all people in a society, and we need to go, right, we're all in this together, everyone, and we're all equal. So we may as well try and work things out to be the best for all of us. And every time someone goes, well, they only have to work 20 hours a week, I have to work 40 hours a week, it's not fair that they don't have to. And you go, you're almost there, you're half right. You have to work 40 hours a week. Why? Why is that? You go, well, it's the way I've always been told I'm supposed to be doing. So are you happy with that? No. Okay, how do we get, what would you be happy with? And then you'll look to the person who could only work 20 hours a week and going, if we work together, we can work out a balance between it and we can all have better lives. And they're just, we've got the ingredients. We've got the ingredients for a utopia. And things like this are going to happen along that road. I think. It's just inevitable. It's just about mitigating the amount of damage that they do, which hopefully the community can bounce back from this and continue with the important things, which is making gaming accessible to everyone. And so hopefully this won't have too much of a roadblock on that.
Wonderfully put, Matt. Thank you. Go on, Jem.
Do either of you remember the A Gay Girl from Damascus?
No, I
blogger?
don't.
So way back in 2011, many
decades ago.
Decades ago. There was a person who had been blogging as a gay American Syrian person, and they were blogging their experiences, their life, and it turned out to be an American man living in America and not a gay woman living in Syria. It was really like big news at the time. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, because, you know, it was an example of somebody basically playing this character for a very, very long time and had done interviews and written articles. I mean, it was big. If you're interested, look her up. And it was a very interesting story. And this story kind of had echoes of that again, in that situation, nothing that the blogger had done was sort of negative to the community that they were claiming to be a part of. In fact, they were raising awareness and understanding and everything, but that it wasn't genuine, it wasn't true, it was a lie. And I think that it's one of those things, isn't it? It's like, do the ends justify the means? Is it okay to, if you think you can do a lot of good by pretending to be somebody else, is that okay? And I think in this particular situation, not least because of the horrific experiences of the women that were supposedly Coty's partners, you know, I mean, Susan apparently dropped something on one foot and went into hospital and had both legs amputated. I mean, it doesn't even make any logical sense, really. But, you know, these things can happen. They do happen occasionally, but you just feel a little bit like, if that's not a true story, then that's quite a horrific story. So I think
it's a problem. It's the problem with, another area where the patriarchy is involved in this is that the patriarchy owns all of the institutions of power, the traditional institutions, so politics, news, media, the legal system. So everything that is happening like in the disabled sphere is mostly coming from, it's like an indie like environment community that doesn't have access to these institutions of power. And so the temptation is to try and find these different like avenues to get some sort of power or resources. So you go, oh, if I just pretend to be disabled, I'll probably get a bit more traction with the stuff that I'm doing. And then obviously that has worked with some of these people. But then that's not a reliable model to base a group's movement on, because one, if you get caught out, then it can do a lot of damage regardless of how much you've done. And also it's too easy to be corrupted, to lose your path of going, I want to do something good, and this is a way that I think I can do more good than if I just be myself. Then it becomes, oh, if I pretend that someone's died, then I might get a bit more sympathy. And then you go, oh, I might start a GoFundMe so I can have a bit of money, and then the path down that is just unsustainable. Which is why, but the path that Alex is on with Toucan, that's the sustainable path. It's a lot harder, and it's a lot more like, it's not as exciting and big, and you're not a great big celebrity, and you're not trying to be a celebrity and be the most popular disabled person on the planet. You're doing the actual work of going into rooms with people and building the awareness there. Yeah, but you should, yeah. So it's not fair, and it's difficult, and it's just a slog, and there's no other way around it, really. I don't think, not in a sustainable way.
No. Well, that kind of brings me on to a sort of closing question, as it were. It's kind of a topic that has been dealt with or at least tried to be dealt with in a lot of sci-fi films and things. In an internet age, I suppose, when we know that obviously, how do we know what is real? And how can we, if we're advocating for things like better accessibility in games, how can that trust be built or rebuilt? And I think you've both touched on it in your last few comments, but yeah, I guess, is there anything else that we can do to kind of move forward from stories like this?
Oh my gosh, that feels like an essay question. Yeah.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. And I think, we talk about how we live in a post-truth era. And I think that is a problematic way of phrasing it, because that implies that there is no such thing as truth, which I don't think is what it's actually trying to talk about. I think what it's trying to talk about is what you say. How do we establish what is and isn't true, where the facts lie, and where the information is reliable? And it's really interesting, because I was talking about this actually at lunchtime with my husband, and we were talking about the Generation Z and Generation Alpha, and the concept of deep fakes and all those sorts of things, which came off the back of me finding a video of Deadpool and Wolverine trying to go into a cinema, but they couldn't because there was a metal detector. So they're like, oh, we're never going to get through that. So they walk off, at which point Johnny Depp, dressed up as a Pirates of the Caribbean character, whose name I've just forgotten, Captain Jack Sparrow, comes up, and he's like, oh no, I'm not going to get in either, because it was all like no guns, no knives. And they looked like all of them. And so I'd sent this to Daniel and said, is this AI? Is this fake? Because I don't believe that they got those three people together to film that scene. And so we were talking about that and about what impact that's going to have. And I have, at the moment, today, I might have a different attitude another day, but right now I have quite a lot of hope that eventually we will get around it, because I do think that the younger generations are more savvy and are more they're more able to just go, oh, that's just brain rot, that's just rubbish. They don't necessarily engage with it in the same way that, say, my generation or the millennials would. I think you're both millennials, are you?
Yeah. I am.
Probably.
Anyway, around there. So I think we're possibly in for a decade, possibly 2 decades of, you heard it here first, of quite a lot of trauma as we deal with the old people like me not knowing what the hell's going on and believing a right load of rubbish. And then I think we will be all right. We will find our way through it and we will be okay. I think in the meantime, what do we do? How do we deal with truth and understanding what truth is? I think the best way that we can do that is to double check our sources. Always look, where are you reading something? Where are you getting something from? Who has said it? And why might they be saying it? to always have a sort of foot in a sort of not sure camp, and just don't go 100% in on something that you've just read on the internet. Check out your sources and go to reliable sources, but also go to multiple sources, because you'll often find that you'll get slightly different perspectives on stuff. And there are lots of places that do fact checking and back up information that you might have found somewhere and go through it with you. So sometimes it can be confusing when something is there and you're like, what? I don't know whether to believe this or not. And I think this is something that I learned from being on the internet in the early days, when you didn't meet people and nobody could exchange photos because it took 5 days to download a picture. So, you know, in those days, if somebody told you they were XYZ, you had to kind of just take it on face value. And so I used to be like, okay, well, if that's what you say you are, I will communicate with you on the basis of that being true. However, I won't assume, I won't put all of my eggs in that basket and assume that, and just assume that it's true and be shocked if it turns out not to be true. So I think there has to be sort of healthy skepticism going on there. And I think we'll get through it. But yeah, I think it's a big issue, and I think it's only going to get worse with AI and deepfakes and malicious activists and, all of that. So yeah. You heard it here first. That's my prediction.
The things that children should be learning at school constantly is they need to be inoculated against propaganda. Because if you understand what propaganda is, then that's basically what checking your sources are. Because you need to look at what is this thing and what is it trying to drive me to do? What is it trying to compel me? What action it's compelling me to take? So sometimes it's going to be, give us money. And you go, well, that one's obviously just trying to get money out of me, trying to get you to hate a certain group of people. You go, oh, yeah, well, that always leads to they want money and power for that. And then it's that mindset of awareness is very difficult to trade in someone without them taking on a certain idea system based on it. You need to teach them the skill of source analysis. And I think another benefit for the young generation is they don't give a shit about mainstream media organizations. They get it from all over the place. So they're not completely invested in like mainstream media stuff. But then there's the problem of the ruling class creating bots and an entire ecosystem of right-wing grifters whose only goal is to radicalize young men for some reason. And yeah, if you can work out what propaganda is, then you'll be fine, I think. Because and then so there's the purely like mental side of it, the mental analysis side of thing, but there's also teaching compassion and sympathy and empathy in between people. Because if you can get someone to go, oh, I care about this other person's troubles and life, and then you add on top of that the ability to recognize propaganda, you need to carve yourself out an actual section of reality with those skills, so that you've got your little bubble of, okay, this is an actual real place, and recognize the absolute dumped fire, like psychosphere of madness that the world is. And that's what I think the post-truth thing means, is that there are so many different truths. But if you can nail down, right, I know what propaganda is and I care about the people around me, that's as solid enough as a foundation as you can get, I think. And then you just batten down the hatches and try and weather the storm of the next decade of artificial intelligence doing some, and we haven't even talked about artificial intelligence created porn and what the theory and the morality around that, and the legality around it, and people's scans of motion capture gets better and better and better. You can literally, it's already done, it's incredibly popular already, is taking those characters and making them do pornographic scenes just using artificial intelligence. And so there is a lot. It's going to be a complicated period. And it'd be nice in Scandinavian countries, things are just getting better. They've got things going well already, and then they go, oh, we can actually improve that. We'll actually give people who are living on the street a free apartment to live in, no questions asked, and £2,000 a month. So they're getting, it's not fair. Shit is just going to get shittier and shitter for a while before it's going to start getting better. But hopefully this place is a little carved out place of a bit of truth.
I just want to share, very briefly, I just wanted to share a book that I went to see the author do a talk at the Hay Festival last year, and it's foolproof. It's called Foolproof, Why We Fall for Misinformation and How to Build Immunity, and it's by Professor Sander van der Linden, and he is looking at the idea about why do we fall for false news and false stories, and how do we inoculate ourselves against that happening to us, because there are lots of tricks that these organizations and these bad actors are using to encourage us to believe their truth. And there are actually ways that, as you were saying, Matt, we can teach people to be able to spot it and be able to protect themselves as much as possible. So it's quite a good book, but it's obviously a hefty academic-y type text, but he has got a website as well which has a really fun little game on it that you can play to teach yourself to spot false news and fake news. And one of the things that he said which really stuck with me is that the real problem is that you can't really change people's ideas about something by simply telling them it's false. So because every time you mention that story, it actually cements that story in their brain, even though you might be preempting it by saying this story is not true, and then you go on and say what the story is, and that then embeds it more in our brains because of the way that our minds work. So it makes it quite challenging when somebody has already put information out there and you're trying to undo that damage. So I think from what we've been talking about today, a situation like this, if it is all fake and these people have been made up, and the damage that could do, it could be very challenging to undo. So it is important that we're able to spot these people early on, I think.
Well, thank you for that recommendation, Jim, and thank you both for a great discussion today. It's a very big topic, so I'm sure we'll return to it in some form or other in future episodes, I expect. Did you have something you wanted to mention, Matt? Yeah,
one last thing. Another missing piece of the puzzle in terms of inoculating people against propaganda and caring for people is, so when I use the word prick here, I'm saying the C word in my head. So just so that everyone hears that when I'm saying it. There is a catastrophically massive number of people who just want to be pricks, who just want to be as big as prick as possible to a certain group of people. And that's why right-wing stuff is so effective. It's because it says you're right to hate. hate is good. And I don't know if there's a way. How do you get someone to not want to be that? To not go, I want to be able to behave like this. And that's another area. It's a lot like when, so with cult deprogramming, it's incredibly difficult to truly get someone out of a cult and get them out in society, being able to live the life on their own terms. And it's one of those things is once it's screwed up, there are some things it's impossible to put them back in the bag, like with America and guns. America's, if they'd 50 years ago, they'd said, right, you're only allowed, as the comedian Jim Jeffries said, he does a very, very famous bit about gun violence. And he said that the people 250 years ago who wrote who wrote the amendments, they had muskets that you could fire 2 shots a minute. So you go, I hate you, I want to kill you. But then by the time you've loaded, you've probably calmed down a bit. Whereas now you've got assault rifles, fully automatic, that you can turn into fully automatic assault rifles. And America, it's just, that's the way it is now. And our only way is to get this generation X, whatever the next one is, and just try and get them to be savvy and kind from the beginning. It's going to be a rough time for quite a while, in the UK at least. Thank you.
There we are then. Thank you, Matt. But yes, so big discussion. If you have thoughts to share, please comment, like or share with other people who you think would enjoy listening. And we'll be back, as always, with more episodes every Thursday. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.